welcome. Thank you for coming. Today we're going to be talking about fasting. And so our first...
Can we get food after this?
Maybe not everyone. So, topic is understanding the health benefits of fasting, why and how to fast. So first, to understand the topic, we need to understand what is fasting. And it has to do with our digestive process and how our body consumes energy, where it gets energy from consumption. So fasting is an act of willing abstinence or reduction from certain foods, drink, or both for a period of time. And fasting is now extended to other things. So people do, for example, media fast. And so they don't watch any news, don't see any TV for, say, a week. Or people can do any other kind of fast to abstain from something. But initially, fasting has to do with what we consume, food and drinks. So has anybody here fasted? And the answer is yes. All of us have fasted at some point in our life. We all fast each day. One could say we refrain from eating to sleep. And so we get up in the morning and we eat, break fast. So that's the meal that breaks the fast. So technically we say had dinner at 6 o'clock in the evening, and then we don't eat for a period of time. We go to sleep. We get up in the morning and maybe have breakfast at 8. So technically that time is set apart for our body to rest from having to digest, and it can focus its energy on cleaning the body and fixing anything that's wrong and getting rid of things that aren't supposed to be in the body, or healing us if we're sick, or taking care of a wound if we've been cut or bruised. So a common question is, how can we fast and still function? Doesn't the body run out of energy? So let's say that I eat a meal today. For breakfast, I have some cereal and bananas. And then I decide to fast. And I fast for 40 days. Let's say I don't eat any food for 40 days. I just drink water, which is very common for fast. You just drink water. What would happen? Would I die?
Probably.
The answer is no. Our bodies, if I have, say, 20% of body fat for my weight, I can survive probably about 90 days without eating. So the body would just consume that body fat. Even though I'm not eating, the body has a lot of reserves for energy. And so we're going to see this process of where the body gets its energy. The body gets energy in various ways, always in the order of least resistance. So wherever it's easiest for the body to get its energy, that's where it's going to go first. And then if that source runs out, then it goes to the next energy source. If that runs out, it goes to the next energy source. Our bodies actually have 3 energy sources on a regular basis. So which are these energy sources? The first one is carbohydrates. Basically, we call it sugars or glucose. But what our body most prefers is carbohydrates. So all starches, rice, potatoes, flour, oats, all of those things. So if I say have some rice and beans for lunch, then that rice is going to be in my digestive tract, depending how much I eat, anywhere from 4 to 6 to 8 hours. If you eat a medium-sized meal, it'll probably be there for about 6 hours. If you eat a smaller meal, 4. If you eat a large meal, then 8. And so as the rice is in my stomach and then goes to the small intestine, the body is constantly taking out these carbohydrates that have been broken down into glucose, and it puts it into the blood so that our body can get energy. It sends it to the brain, to the heart, to the lungs, to all the muscles, and all of the cells in the body, really. Our eyes, our ears, everything is taking glucose from our blood system to function. So any excess carbohydrates that the body doesn't use immediately are broken down into glycogen and stored in our liver or our muscles for later use. So there we're seeing storage number 2, or energy source number 2. Our liver stores a lot of glycogen, as well as our muscles. So if our body has nothing in the digestive tract, then it goes to source number 2. And source number 2 is the liver, mostly. Glycogen is also stored in the muscles, except that glycogen can only be used by those muscles. So the glycogen that is stored in the muscles of my arm are only used by those specific muscles that are storing it. That glycogen cannot be sent to another part of the body. Whereas the glycogen that is stored in the liver, that can be sent to all places in the body, including muscles. But the body prioritizes. So it always puts the brain first. So if there's little energy to be consumed, it always sends it to the brain first. After the brain, the second priority is the heart. After the heart, the lungs, and then after that, the other organs. So that if it only has enough energy for one thing, it's going to give it to the brain. So, but then, obviously, our liver has a big storage of glycogen that lasts us maybe 10 to 12 hours for a regular adult. And it starts using that up. And it starts consuming it. It sends energy to the brain, to the heart, to the lungs, but also to the rest of our body, because there's plenty to use. But then when it starts running out, then it's going to go to the third source of energy. So when the reserves of glycogen are low and almost out in the liver, then the body starts to metabolize fat and use energy from the fat that's stored in our body. And that energy can be sent to all of our body. So even if the fat's around the tummy, that energy is not used just for the muscles around this area. That energy can be used by the brain, by the heart, by our hands, by our eyes, everywhere. So when we fast, that's what happens. Our last meal is our first source of energy for our body's functioning. It's going to take all of the carbohydrates from that meal that we had and put glucose into the blood so we can function. Once 6 or 8 hours have passed and our digestive tract is empty of energy, then it starts using energy from the liver. The glycogen that's stored there is metabolized to glucose. Glucose is released into the bloodstream, and our body continues to have energy. And then when the liver energy source is finished, then it starts metabolizing fat, and it breaks it down into fatty acids and glucose, and then glucose is released into our bloodstream, and we can continue to function. So if I was to fast for 40 days, and I've never done that, but I do know people who have, then most of the time, probably after a day and a half, then they're pretty much living off of the fats. So if we look at the order of least resistance, the carbohydrates, the glycogen in the liver, and then the fat. So technically, a fast really begins at this point. So during the first two, so for the first 12, 14, 16 hours after your last meal, you're technically not fasting. Fasting, by definition, is when you've gone over to start burning fat as your energy source. And the reason it's defined that way is when the body gets to that point, that's when a lot of really, really wonderful things start to kick in. So now that we've talked about carbohydrates, we also know that fruit has a lot of sugars, which are a source of energy for us. And also we have processed sugar that can also be used as an energy source. I just wanted to point out the difference between these different types of energy sources because the body uses them actually very, very differently. And we'll understand why carbohydrates are very important in our diets. So fructose, for the most part, can't be used by our cells as energy. So if I eat an apple, that fructose is in my digestive tract. That fructose cannot be metabolized to glucose and released into the bloodstream, just that simply. The liver has to pick up that fructose and metabolize it first into fat through a process called lipogenesis. And then the liver has to process it one more time from fat into fatty acids and glucose. So it's actually a two-part process that the liver has to do to make fructose, which is an energy source, into glucose, which is the energy source our body uses. So this is not the path of least resistance for the body. If you eat an apple and you eat a potato, the body is going to use the energy of the potato first because it's a lot easier. Now if we look at sucrose, just common table sugar, it's actually a mixture of glucose and fructose. So the glucose that makes up that part of the sugar can be put directly into the bloodstream and used as an energy source, but part of that sugar is also fructose. And so the fructose is going to be metabolized in that two-step process. First into fat, and then broken down into glucose. So why are we getting fat on high fructose corn syrup? One could wonder if sugar is just a source of energy. Well, high fructose corn syrup or table sugar, in this case, high fructose corn syrup, they're telling us in the name, it's high fructose corn syrup. So even though this has a little bit of glucose, it's mostly fructose. And what happens to fructose before our body can use it? It turns into fat. So it's a difficult process for our body to use that energy. And so the body will first turn it into fat, and it'll think, hopefully I won't have to use that, because then I'll have to re-metabolize it. And then we eat again, and so that fat is never having to be broken down. So we're taking a lot of high fructose corn syrup, and the body's turning it straight into fat, and then it's just being stored there. So the standard diet, what I was taught when I was growing up from my parents, and I imagine most of you also were taught, is that the standard diet is 3 meals a day plus snacks. Get up in the morning, breakfast. They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You have to have breakfast, otherwise it's not healthy. So you have orange juice and cereal and a banana, and you run out the door, go to work, and about 10:30 you get hungry, so you brought a bag of nuts, which is healthy, fortunately. Maybe some strawberries, so you have a little snack, some nuts and strawberries. At 1 o'clock, all of the office goes out to work, goes out to lunch, and so you have grilled salmon with a salad, delicious, and then you get back to work, about 3 o'clock you're getting the munchies, you have your second cup of coffee, and there happens to be some cinnamon buns that somebody brought into work, and so you have one of those. And then you come home from work, and about 6:30 you sit down to have dinner. So we've had 3 meals and 2 snacks. That's the standard diet. And what I'd like to do today is question that standard diet. And what we're going to learn is that, in fact, it's not the healthiest diet. Even though it's standard and we all follow it and we've all been taught and that's what everybody does, just because everybody does it doesn't mean it's the best. So the standard diet, 3 meals plus snacks, is not the healthiest option, unfortunately. Let's look quickly at the health benefits of fasting. So what is fasting? Fasting is not eating, so you get to the point where your body is burning fat as an energy source. When that happens, the body does a lot of other very, very positive things. So when the body gets to that point, it starts to reduce inflammation, just naturally. Now, why do all of these things happen? All of these things happen because the body realizes, when it gets to that point that it starts burning fat, it realizes, okay, there's not a lot of food available. I have to become really, really effective at everything I do. So the body basically sharpens itself and says, okay, now we are in a time of famine. We need to just do everything the smartest way possible. And so the body just starts reducing inflammation. It gets rid of excess water in the body. It's, cuts down on some of the immune fighting it's doing, and it just prioritizes things that are essential. It reduces oxidative stress in organs throughout the body. So basically what it's doing is it's lowering the pace at which it's doing everything. So during a fast, it's not recommended to do hard physical labor because your body is basically slowing down. So part of that is it reduces the oxidative stress in all of the organs. It affects your metabolism, so it begins to burn fat for energy. And not only at that point, when you're doing the fast, but then it starts continuously doing that. So we all talk about metabolism, and some people look at a skinny friend who eats pizza all day and says, it's not fair. He has a blessed metabolism. He can eat whatever he wants and he's never going to get fat. Well, we can affect our metabolism. And if we fast, if we get our bodies used to getting to the point of burning fat as an energy source, then the body is going to do that on a regular basis. Your metabolism is actually going to increase and work much better. It improves our brain's cognitive functions. So all of the connections between neurons, they're provided with extra energy sources so that our brain functions much, much better. It increases the body's stress resistance. And this is also something mostly in the brain because stress is above all a mental game that we play with ourselves. So in our brain being much sharper, our bodies can tolerate stress much, much better. It reduces blood pressure. It increases muscular efficiency. It reduces the energy uptake in the intestine, and that just means that when you start eating again, then the energy intake is at a much slower process. at a much slower pace, which is much healthier for us, because it means that glucose doesn't enter the body so fast and we don't get that spike, and then our blood is completely drenched in insulin to bring the blood sugar levels back down. So the intake in the intestine is at a much slower pace, which is very, very healthy for us. It increases insulin sensitivity, and that means that your body is a lot more sensitive to changes in blood sugar levels, and it uses insulin a lot more effectively. Enhances the ability of nerve cells to repair DNA. Our body is always trying to repair DNA, but it's got limited energy. But when we get to this point in our fast, our body just does everything in the best way it can, and it knows that repairing DNA in our cells is essential for our survival. And so it starts doing that at a much faster pace. Increases the rate of the body's detoxification process. So anything that's excess, it wants to get rid of it. It wants the body to be clean so it can work very, very effectively. And it increases overall energy and productivity. It's very, very strange that by not eating, we would think that we would have less energy, that we would feel tired, that we would maybe, feel dizzy and have to lie down. But actually, fasting, once it really kicks in, gives the body a lot more energy. So it does two things. One is it makes the body sharp. It's a situation of not emergency, but it knows, okay, now's a time of famine. I have to store what's really important. I have to do things effectively. And then the second thing is, because we're not wasting so much energy digesting takes up a lot of energy from our body. Because that process is no longer in the way, then it can use all of that energy to do a lot more important things, like detoxify our body, like sharpen our brain, like repair DNA. So all of these are health benefits of fasting. It's pretty impressive. So fasting is very, very good for the body in general, but it is best for the brain. And a lot of very, very famous philosophers and writers and thinkers and inventors are known to have fasted on a regular basis. So it really, really does miracles for the brain. So it's a two-part. When we begin to burn fat as a source of energy, the body, as a byproduct of this metabolizing the fats into glucose and fatty acids, also produces something called ketone bodies, as well as a certain kind of protein called neurotrophic factors. So when the body is burning fat as a source of energy, as a byproduct of that equation, these two things are produced, ketone bodies and neurotrophic factors. And both of those are sent to the brain, because the brain is the one that uses these two. And both of those are very, very good at helping the brain do maintenance or development. So as we're growing as children and teenagers, our bodies produce a lot of ketone bodies, but then as adults, it doesn't produce as much, because we don't have to develop the brain constantly. But maintenance is just as important. So our body does regularly produce some, but when we fast, it produces a lot more of these. And so the maintenance in the brain is just done a lot better. Basically, fasting can be seen as a challenge for the brain. If the body feels, I'm not getting any food, for survival, instead of the body's saying, well, that means I'm feeling tired and I should go to sleep. No, the body says, well, if I don't get food, I might die. So instead of having less energy, you have more energy. Instead of the brain getting sleepy and turning off, it actually becomes sharper so that you can figure out how to get food and not die. So fasting is a challenge for the brain, which makes it sharper, more energy efficient, increases neuron development and maintenance, basically as exercises for our muscles, which keep them young and healthy and strong. Fasting is for our brain. So when we fast, our brain is challenged and everything becomes much sharper and works more effectively. So this is another interesting fact, and that's the single most effective proven way to lower high blood pressure is fasting. Medication does it temporarily, but you're not really addressing the root problem, which in most cases has to do with our diet, what we're eating. People have high blood pressure because they're eating too many of the wrong things. They're eating high salt content, they're eating a lot of fats. And by fasting, you're basically giving your body a break from that, and so your blood pressure goes down. And of course, it's again not addressing the root problem. The root problem is that when you start eating again, you should eat the right kinds of things. But at least it's giving your body a rest from the abuse that we're regularly giving it, and it does bring down your blood pressure. It's the most effective way to solve high blood pressure, or to bring it down. It doesn't solve it because you have to change your lifestyle to solve that problem. So why isn't it recommended? When you go to a doctor and they say you have high blood pressure, why doesn't the doctor say you should fast? Well, there's several reasons. First, fasting is something that if you're going to do it to bring down your blood pressure, then you're looking at a 2 or 3 week fast, and it's something that you have to do under supervision. And so hospitals would need to have another group of people dedicated to that, and they don't think it's important enough. They think it's easier to just give you pills and say, well, this is going to help. Try to eat less salt, try to eat less. Also the drug industry, they have economic interests in selling drugs. And so they don't necessarily tell the doctors, well, you should recommend a fast because it's actually healthier for the patient. No, you should recommend these drugs because we're going to make more money. And we'll throw in a trip to Hawaii once a year so you can go to the medical conference. That's how it works, unfortunately. So, but do note, if you have high blood pressure and you're in this room, don't start a 2-week fast. I'm not recommending that. If you're doing a long fast, it should be done under expert supervision. I am not somebody who regularly does long fasts, 10 days or more. So I don't know enough about it to help you, but there are people who know a lot about it and who, they'll check you twice a day for certain things to make sure that you're hydrated, that you have all of the things that your body needs to. So if you have high blood pressure and you want to help it by fasting, go to an expert. They can certainly help you. So let's understand different types of fasts. So there's long fasts. For example, a 2-day fast is already starting to be considered a long fast. if you do a 2-day fast once a month or 2 one-day fasts once a month, then basically for 24 days a year, because it's 12 months times 2 days each month, 24 days a year, you're not consuming any calories. And on average, we consume 2,000 calories a day. So 24 days times 2,000 calories a day, 48,000 calories. If you're fasting 2 days a month in a year, then you have given your body a pause from consuming 48,000 calories. That's significant. Another very common fast is a 2-week fast twice a year. Some people will do it, say, in January and then in July. Other people do it in March and then in November. But they'll do a 2-week fast twice a year. So that's 28 days. 2 weeks is 14 times 2, 28 days a year. Basically, they're saving their body from having to digest 56,000 calories. That's a significant amount of food. There's another type of fast, which is short intermittent fasts, which are actually almost not fasts. But they are long enough so that your body does start burning the fat, and so it is considered a fast. But they're not as difficult. A 2-week fast would be really hard to do, because when you fast, you need to not be very physically active. And so, you'd have to take a 2-week leave from work to do a 2-week fast. And not everybody has that luxury. So in today's society, people have come up with this concept of short intermittent fasts, and that's a lot more what I do in my life. So one of them, for example, is you eat regularly for 5 days, Monday through Friday. When I work hard, I need a lot of energy. I'm, up on my feet for 16 hours a day. I need to eat regularly. And then on the 2 days when I am not as active, Saturday and Sunday, I only consume 500 calories. And that's basically one small meal. So you can decide to have it as for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, whatever you want. I usually have it as lunch. So I'll get up on Saturday morning, I'll skip breakfast altogether, just have water. And then around 1 o'clock, I'll have a small meal. And then I won't have dinner. And then I'll get up on Sunday, I won't have breakfast, I'll have a small lunch, and then I won't have dinner. So if you do this on a regular basis, week in, week out, it adds up to 156,000 calories in 1 year that you're giving your body a break from digesting. That's significant. There's another type of short intermittent fast which is a lot more hardcore, and it's done by a lot of people who are into yoga and meditation, and where they eat regularly for 1 day. So 1 day you eat your 3 meals plus 2 snacks as you usually do, and then the next day you eat 1 small meal. And then the following day you eat regularly, and then the next day you eat 1 small meal. So it's every other day. 1 day you eat normal, the next day you fast by just having lunch. So if you do that on a regular basis, in 1 year's time, it's almost 275,000 calories that you've saved your body from eating. So I want to put that into a little bit of perspective as far as our own bodies. So in theory, they say that 3,500 calories is 1 pound of body weight. So if you eat 3,500 calories and don't do anything, this is not possible because our heart beats and we breathe. But if it was possible that we ate 3,500 calories and didn't waste any of it, we would weigh a pound more. But our body is breathing and heart beating and we're walking around, so we're using up a lot of this energy. But in theory, that's what it equates to. So these 273,750 calories in 1 year's time equates to 78 pounds of body weight. That's significant. I know a doctor who was overweight, and he wanted to lose weight, and he didn't really have time to make a big lifestyle change, like start exercising more, like going to a gym regularly, because he works crazy hours. And so he decided, I'm going to try this intermittent fast. He did this 1 day regular, 1 day 500 calories. And at first it was difficult for him. The day when he only ate lunch, he would sometimes get a little bit of a headache. He would sometimes feel a little tired. But then after about a week and a half, his body just adjusted, and it was completely normal. In that 1 year, without exercising more than he regularly did, just by changing that, he lost 50 pounds. So it's a powerful, powerful tool that we can use to help our bodies in so many respects. It's not only about losing weight. It's about giving our body the rest to do all of these other very important things that our body wants to do, but is too busy digesting junk food we feed it to take care of it. That's the truth. So, this is a very interesting thing, and as a chef, and I'm passionate about nutrition, so I'm constantly taking nutrition courses and going to talks and reading books. I want to learn everything I can about nutrition. And I experiment with my body. You know, we all have this one experiment we can control. And so I've tried a lot of different things. You know, I've done a lot of juicing because I heard that was really good, and I've eaten mostly just vegetables for a while, and I've eaten vegan diets for shorter periods. You know, I've tried a lot of different things, and what I'm finding for myself is that the single greatest factor that can affect my health is not necessarily what I choose to eat. It is important. It's important that we choose to eat healthy things and not garbage. But our bodies can tolerate a certain amount of garbage. And, you know, some people say eating meat is terrible. Some people say eating meat is wonderful. So, you know, all of these things, there's so many factors. What I find is the single most determinant factor in healthy eating, it's how much you eat. As far as your basic nutrition is satisfied, if you eat less, it's going to improve your health. Because we live in a society of excess, where food is in surplus, where we have access to food every single day, 24 hours a day. In a country where there is malnutrition and starvation, it's a different story. But here in the United States, the single biggest factor that can improve your health as far as food is concerned is not what you choose to eat, but how much you eat. So you could not change your diet at all. You could be a carnivore and eat steak and French fries and have chocolate pudding for dessert, and have salads sometimes, and have oatmeal sometimes, and have sugary cereals sometimes, and drink lots of water, but on occasion have that Coca-Cola that you so much like. If you continue eating that way and just eat less of it, instead of eating that whole Snickers bar, cut it in half. Eat half of it, give half to your friend. Just that change is going to be a huge, huge difference in your health. Our bodies are made to constantly fix ourselves they can withstand abuse, fortunately. So if we cut down in the amount of abuse, we're doing our health a huge favor. Which doesn't mean that I say eat garbage and no. Try to eat well, but I know myself, it's hard to stick to diets when it's your birthday, you want to eat cake, and you should eat cake, Food is about enjoyment as well. But the single biggest factor that affects your health is how much you eat, at least here in the United States. They've done a lot of studies of groups of people who live the longest on average. So they will find a little colony in the countryside up in the mountains in Japan where everybody lives to be 95 or older. And so they ask themselves, why does this little community up in the mountainside in Japan live so long? And then they'll find another group of native people in the Philippines who live in the jungle, and also everybody lives to be 92 or older. And likewise, they find people in Peru who all live really, really long lives. And so they've done studies. They've said, well, maybe it's because they eat only rice and vegetables. Because in Japan, in the countryside, that's all they eat, rice and vegetables. But then in the Philippines, they find that these people are eating meat. And then in Greenland, there's a group that lives long, and all they eat is seal fat. So it's, their diet is mostly meat. And so you think, what is the common factor? The only common factor is that they eat less. There are communities that instead of consuming 2,000 calories a day, on average consume maybe 1,000 calories a day. They're not malnourished, they don't go hungry, they're not overweight, but the only factor they have in common is not that they eat vegetables only, or meat only, or this or that, or no junk food, no. The only thing they have in common is that they eat less. So it should be pretty clear to us now that eating less is good for us. And if fasting means eating less, then fasting is good for us. The good thing about fasting is that it's a mental decision to eat less. And you're going to find that if you start fasting, it has tremendous benefits besides your health. You feel good about setting a goal and accomplishing it. You feel cleaner. You feel lighter. You feel that your brain is more open and clear. If you feel tired all the time, you're going to feel that maybe you don't feel tired as often. You've got more energy. It can improve your mood. So if I could give one piece of advice to help your dietary choices improve, it would be eat less. Don't change what you eat, not necessarily. Just eat less. I asked the doctor one time in my search for perfect health, I asked the doctor, how much should we eat? And he said, what you can hold in the palms of your hands, cups like this. Because that's more or less the size of your stomach. So if you eat that much, then you're not expanding your stomach. You should feel satiated that you've eaten enough. It's healthy. So now let's look at the fast so that hopefully some of you will be encouraged to try this sometime. And we don't have to think about, doing the day on, day off fast. No, start with baby steps. Just set yourself a goal. Say, at the end of October or end of November, after Thanksgiving, because I'm going to eat a lot during Thanksgiving, the 30th of November, I'm going to do a 1 meal fast. I'm not going to not eat for the whole day because that seems scary to me. I'm going to just eat lunch and drink water. So, always prepare a fast, and then always ease out of it. It is a transition for the body, so we should always be kind to the body. You don't get out of bed and run a marathon. You get out of bed, you stretch, you eat something, wake up, you walk around, maybe you jog a little to warm up, and then you run a marathon. If we're gonna fast, then we should transition into it. We should prepare our bodies. Now we're gonna start eating less. So don't go out and get a big Angus beef and French fries and chocolate cake because you think, I need as much energy as I can get before my fast because I know I'm gonna be starving. It's actually gonna be harder for you. If you're gonna fast tomorrow, then today you should have just some soup for dinner or a salad. Have something light. If you're gonna do a full day fast where you're not gonna eat anything all day, then the day before maybe have soup for lunch, and then for dinner maybe just a fruit juice. Because what you're doing is you're calming your system down, you're slowly emptying your digestive tract so that it's not a shock for your body. When you get up in the morning, your body is already kind of prepared for less food. And so just drink water. Some people do tea fasts, where instead of drinking water, you're drinking tea or water, and that's fine as well. And then after the fast, so the 30th of November, you ate nothing, you maybe got a little bit of a headache, you thought about all the food you're gonna eat the next day. Then the next day, don't eat all of that food that you planned on eating when you were fasting, because you were so hungry. No, just for breakfast, maybe have some fruits. Chop up some watermelon, just eat some watermelon. Have some water, maybe a cup of tea. And then for lunch, maybe have just a salad. And then for dinner, then you can have rice and beans. Then you can start eating regularly. But always prepare a fast by starting to eat less and lighter things. And then after the fast, always ease back into it by again eating a little bit lighter and more and more. So these are some of the things that are recommended: fresh fruit juices, like soups, teas, or salad, or before or after the fast. So even though I'm recommending for you to start small and maybe just do a one-day fast and try it out and see what you think, or maybe think, you know, I'm going to give this 5-2 thing a test. I'm going to eat regularly for 5 days, and then on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I'm just going to have lunch and have 500 calories. So, but there are very, very advanced fasts, and if you have high blood pressure and it's a real issue, then you can go to a specific center where they will help you through a 2 or 3 week fast to really bring down your blood pressure. So I interviewed a friend of mine who's a yoga teacher, and she does fasts on a regular basis. She does a one-day fast every new moon, and she's been doing this for 20 years maybe. So every 28 days on the new moon, she doesn't eat anything that day. And she eases her body into it by the day before having lighter foods, and then eases out of it the day after. And then also she does a 10-day fast every third new moon. So she said that the next one is now the 25th of October, I think. So the 25th of October, instead of doing her one-day fast as she regularly does, now it's the third month, she does a 10-day fast. And so she will prepare that fast maybe 2 days ahead, where she starts eating lighter things, drinking more liquids than solids. Then she'll fast for 10 days where she'll only consume water, and then she eases out of it. She continues living her life regularly. That doesn't mean that she takes a vacation from work every third month for 10 days. She's a single mom, and she has a son who's maybe 10 years old, Jahaya, who's full of energy, and she's got a full-time job as a yoga instructor, so she has to go teach her classes. But she definitely takes it easier. During the yoga classes, instead of doing all of the poses with her students, she'll talk part of it, and then part of it she'll do the. So, but her body is used to it now. She's been doing it for 20 years. So her body is up to that speed. So, but she does say that the first 2 days are accompanied by mild headaches as the body is adjusting to start this energy from fat instead of just from the carbohydrates or from the glucose in the liver that we have stored. But so the first 2 days, while the body is adjusting, she'll feel some light headaches, she'll feel lightheadedness sometimes, and hunger. So she'll drink water, but from time to time she'll be hungry. She'll think, oh, an apple would be nice now. But after 2 days, it pretty much goes away. The third day is gentler. She feels a little bit of low energy, like she felt the first 2 days maybe. But then on day 4, she says she described it this way. She said, on day 4 you start flying. And I thought that was interesting. Basically, you just get a lot more energy. You feel like your body is adjusted to this. You don't spend so much time eating and digesting and washing dishes, so you have time for other things, and you have energy for lots of other things. You start feeling rejuvenated. By day 10, she is so full of energy that she doesn't want to sleep. Sometimes she finds it hard to sleep on her 10th day because her body is just so alive. It's gotten rid of so much junk. She feels lighter. Her body is working effectively. Her mind is super sharp. She feels like she could run a marathon, like she's drank 10 cups of coffee that day, even though all she's been drinking is water. But after 10 days, her body starts feeling just so wonderful. It's like we felt when we were 8 years old. Where you're running all day and laughing and you're out and about and your mom goes, dinner time. The last thing you want to do is eat. You want to be out there with your friends and run all night until the sun goes down and keep running all night. That's how kids feel. That's how we can also feel if we aren't abusing our bodies this way. Another interesting thing she says is she feels like she'd never like to eat again. This feeling is so good, she just feels like, I don't need food. Of course, she intellectually understands that she does need food and that this is just a healthy process. But that's how she feels. Her body no longer feels hunger. These sugar cravings that we have, they're non-existent for her. So that's what a 10-day fast can look like. It's important to understand that fasting is very individual. Our bodies are unique, every single one of us. We have our own needs. So you should begin with small steps, and you need to test different things and find out what works for you. My yoga friend, she can do a 10-day fast, but if you asked her to do this intermittent, one day eat regularly, one day off, I think she would go crazy. She wouldn't be able to do it. She needs to like all or nothing. That's her personality, and that's why this works for her. 10-day fast, she can do it with no problem. I think if she eats that lunch, then she just starts thinking about food. Whereas for me, the intermittent fasting works a lot better. I've never tried a 10-day fast. I'm actually curious to try it sometime. But I think the first time I did it, I would have to take time off from work just so that I could be focused on the fast and not, not feel like I'm gonna do my work poorly because I don't have enough energy. So maybe I should do that. But the intermittent one works for me very well. I eat for 5 days regularly on the weekends. I don't have a problem just having one small meal for those 2 days. And on Monday, it's not like I feel starved. I just feel it's Monday and I've got to be busy and I eat regularly. So you've got to find what works for you. It's good to have a fast partner. If you can fast with somebody else, that's actually really, really great. Because you can encourage each other, you can accompany each other, you can, hang out and whatever. It's not always easy to get a fast partner, so at least you should have somebody who knows that you're fasting. who can just be of assistance to you, whether morally or practically. You know, maybe you're fasting and for a day and you think it's great, but you're feeling a little tired and you run out of water because you like drinking a specific type of water. Then call that fasting friend and say, could you do me a favor? I just ran out of water. Could you go to Whole Foods and get me 16 bottles of water? Because that's what I know I'm going to need for the rest of the day. And then they do that for you. Rather than feeling weak and driving in the car and feeling wheezy and, you know. So it's better to just have somebody who knows you're fasting who can help you out. Fast on days when you don't have any heavy physical activities. So if you're going to do a fast for the first time, don't think, I'm Superman, I'm going to go to the gym and work out like I do every day. No. If you're fasting and this is your first time, just think, today I'm going to stay home, I'm going to read some books, I'm going to watch some movies, I'm going to go for a walk in the afternoon to the beach to see the ocean. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to take it easy. So another interesting thing is about fasting is time that we spend shopping for food, cooking, eating, washing up, the whole process of eating we have for anything else we want. Take that time to sit down and write some letters to people that you haven't reached out for in a while. So you're going to have extra time because you're not consumed with food that you can invest in something else. Also, understand that it's a process that you are doing with yourself. It's a very personal thing to fast, like it is a very personal thing to eat. We each get to decide what we put into our body. It's very, very personal. And abstaining from food and fasting is also a very personal thing. It's an experience where your body is going to teach you things. It's going to speak to you. It's going to say, this feels good, or this feels uncomfortable, or I'm scared of this. All of those feelings are valid. You've got to just listen to your body and try to understand what it needs, what's going on. So enjoy that time you get to spend with yourself during a fast. And definitely listen to your body and learn. So here's 3 quotes about fasting that I thought were interesting. Philippus Paracelsus, he's one of the 3 fathers of Western medicine. And he says, fasting is the greatest remedy. And he afterwards says, you're allowing the doctor within to heal you. Fasting is the greatest remedy. On an Egyptian pyramid inscription, when they went in and found the tombs and they saw in hieroglyphics, so they had to decipher it, it said, humans live on 1/4 of what they eat. The other 3/4 lives their doctor. Very wise. We overeat, and the Egyptians, they had a time of great wealth. I'm sure they were overeating as well. So it's important for us to understand that we need less food than we think. This standard diet of 3 meals a day plus snacks is not good for us. It's actually healthier for us to eat less. And then the last one, Mark Twain, a little starvation can really do more for the average sick man than can the best medicines and doctors. So there's a lot of alternative doctors who really recommend fasting for a lot of things. So it's very, very well proven in decreasing high blood pressure, but all kinds of things. People use it to cure diabetes. People use it to what's it called? To improve circulation, like people who are going to have heart attacks or what's that called? Heart disease. People use it to help with heart disease, all kinds of things. Of course, all of this should be done under supervision with an expert. But so, this is my one recommendation. If you're not going to fast, I don't care. If you throw out everything I said today, you say fasting isn't for me, it doesn't bother me the least. But do take with you that calorie restriction for optimal nutrition. We should be eating less. And whether that means that you actually want to take your body to that breaking point of starting to burn fat as an energy source, which we know is tremendously healthy for us in many, many ways, or not, just eating less is very, very good for us. I have a business. It's called thespecialmiami.com, and we serve vegetarian meals for people. If you're interested, you can ask me about that. And then here's the website for our cancer prevention and recovery group. We always have the latest information of when the next meeting is and the topic, what the meal is going to be. Under events, right over here, you can always go and find all of these lectures from the previous weeks. So if you missed one class or started coming a couple weeks ago and you wonder what we talked about before, you can go in and see them. Thank you very much.